Our next speaker is Stephen Comstock. He is the Director of Corporate Policy for the American Petroleum Institute. And his responsibilities cover coordination and managing cross-segment policy issues, including climate tax, trade, operational security, and emergency response issues. So, gee, Stephen, what do you do in your spare time? He's been with API for over 16 years in a number of roles. And prior to API, he was a tax attorney with ExxonMobil in their tax department, and he provided planning advice for various projects in their upstream, downstream, and chemical operations. He's currently an adjunct professor at Georgetown Law School and formerly chair of the Energy and Environmental Taxes Committee of the ABA, beloved by me. And he received a BA from the University of Texas and a JD from George Washington University. And I don't know whether I got a chance to teach you over there, Stephen, but thank you so much for joining us. We're delighted to have you on board with us now. So Stephen, would you care to chime in?
Great. Can you hear me okay?
I do.
Can you hear me okay? Great.
I do.
All right. Well, I really appreciate, thank you, and really appreciate having me here today as part of the program and such a distinguished list of speakers. I think I'm having problems with my webcam as we sort of work from home in our various offices. I think it's trying to access a webcam that I don't quite have access to right now, so I apologize. But let me go ahead and give some remarks. I don't have slides, but I did want to prepare and provide some remarks. Sort of where we are and what we're doing. So hopefully that's okay. But of course, the focus of the program is on advanced energy technology, which involves inspiration, capital, policy outlook, and of course, patience, some of which we are probably lacking in today's environment, but all of which are important to focus on. It's also important, of course, that the oil and natural gas industry is part of forums like this and open to engagement on a host of new ideas as governments, businesses, and consumers consider how to invest and which policies to support in the creation of energy solutions to meet future consumer demands. As Vice President of Corporate Policy at API, my role is to help define and manage industry policy around climate issues, as well as support industry initiatives in this space. This is something that we have driven, that was driven by our membership, and is certainly part of our future plans. This certainly involves a bit of juggling and understanding of different perspectives, but there are common points that we have been working from. While I'm certainly not a scientist, as you read my background, I want to at least offer some insights on how the industry is approaching the issue of energy technologies broadly, as well as in the policy space. I will then, open it up for questions. But first, the industry has been innovative around energy solutions in the past, and there are high expectations that we can continue that trend. We are an industry of dedicated problem solvers looking to address energy needs. We have succeeded in finding new supplies and supporting broad economic growth over a number of decades and business cycles. In discussions with our members, there is a strong expectation of continuing and building upon that track record. Second, technology and innovation are necessary to addressing the risks of climate change, and policies to support development and deployment of new ideas are critical. Government policies that identify and adequately foster programs in energy efficiency, carbon capture, and other advanced technologies are vital to addressing those objectives. We believe that collaborative investment in this basic research, followed by the introduction of market forces, will drive real innovation. Third, we believe there will always be some basic blocking and tackling to do around these issues to help policymakers and businesses assess future steps. Continued reviews and development of the assumptions and inputs to marginal abatement curves and measurement approaches provides foundational support for new areas of opportunity or confirmation of paths forward. API, in its role as a trade association and convener, will play in these three areas and support our members. So I wanted to spend some time diving into them, starting with the last one that focuses on some of the basics. At the beginning of the year, API, our members, and other stakeholders from the industry, both domestic and foreign, began the multi-year process of updating the compendium of greenhouse gas emission estimation methodologies for the oil and gas industry. The compendium provides the industry with the latest available emission factors and methodologies to estimate greenhouse gas emissions from our operations. Updates to the compendium reflect learning from changes that have occurred in the industry over the past 10 years, a time that has seen the U.S. oil and natural gas production increase significantly, including updated emission factors, improved classifications and equipment definitions across the entire oil and natural gas value chain. The information in the compendium is influential in helping companies develop their sustainability reports and provides support for EPA's assessment of U.S. emissions. This will be the fourth release of the compendium, representing 20 years of work to ensure that greenhouse gas emissions from the oil and natural gas industry are properly and consistently accounted for. Further, focusing on this type of data is driving industry collaboration efforts like the Environmental Partnership to identify and work on various approaches to reduce emissions of methane and volatile organic compounds in cost-effective ways. The Environmental Partnership involves over 80 upstream and midstream companies, including but not limited to API members, and has developed 3 separate environmental performance programs for participating companies to implement and phase into their operations. To underscore this commitment, they have agreed to track their progress and report their collective action and positive impacts they've accomplished each year. Of course, I would also be remiss for not mentioning the role that standards and recommended practices can play in moving technologies into practice. API has a robust standards program which is ANSI accredited. As a result, our standards have to be reviewed or updated on a 5-year cycle. That allows for new energy technologies to be considered or made eligible for use and over time may become part of operations. This point is augmented by the fact that with a century of standard setting under our belt, some of our standards and practices have been incorporated by reference into industry regulations by a number of countries. From a broader policy perspective, the industry understands that there is a role for government in driving innovation and technology advancements. API supports the need for this government engagement to help create a broad range of large-scale, low-cost GHG emission reduction options across the economy. It bears mentioning that government has always played a historical role in facilitating the early stages of pre-commercial development of basic science and technology. There are just too many success stories on that front to mention in this short time. However, those concepts need to be commercialized and fostered, and all industries should work to find ways of bringing ideas to the market and address broader consumer needs. Policies to incentivize innovation to reduce GHG emissions should focus on all forms of GHG emission reduction, including research, development, and demonstration related to the oil and natural gas industry. This includes the support of our national labs that clearly play an important role as they embody research organizations with a strong record of these types of advancing technologies. The industry also appreciates and has a track record with supporting the equally amazing innovation capacity at our public and private institutions of higher education. We also encourage officials to work on policies that incentivize private sector early cycle RD&D for large-scale GHG emissions on our economy-wide basis. Legislation like the Utilization Significant Emissions with Innovation Technologies Act, or USEA Act, or the Clean Industrial Technology Act have been introduced, some on a bipartisan basis, and indicate the interest and capacity to take the challenge of new technologies around energy and energy emissions. One of the significant areas where innovation will be instrumental going forward is carbon capture, has been alluded to in the previous speaker, and the use or storage of that carbon. This is a bipartisan issue that has been highlighted as instrumental in addressing the emission challenge and supported in various pieces of proposed legislation. It is also the focus of a number of public-private projects involving our members. For example, there is the Chevron Natural Gas Carbon Capture Technology Testing Project, which is supported by DOE and working on the design, construction, commissioning, and testing of an engineering scale carbon capture plant using transformational post-combustion carbon capture technology. The plant will operate under realistic conditions at a California oil field for at least 2 months of continuous steady-state testing in order to gather data for further process scale-up of carbon capture technology. API on its own is also engaging through our National Petroleum Council. We are in North Carolina. We are supporting a project led by the Southern States Energy Board on novel research and development in the direct capture of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Our hope is to continue to engage in other ways and look for opportunities to bring energy producers and energy users together to pursue new ideas in energy solutions. Also on the policy front, there's currently a credit under 45Q of the tax code supporting investments around the capture and storage of carbon from emitters. The credit was recently for tax legislation updated, and those changes are being clarified through the IRS regulations. However, as laid out in a recent National Petroleum Council study, further support of this emerging technology is needed. Legislation extending, increasing, expanding the credit to bring in more projects and sources of carbon emissions is important for policymakers to consider. As new ideas are advanced, we need to assess how the transition from basic research to marketable technology should happen, and how much support makes sense. It may sound simple, but we see a value in evaluating new technologies on a consistent basis based upon the potential for the largest scale and lowest cost of GHG emissions abatement opportunity across the economy. But the shift to and role of the private sector in addressing this challenge and developing advanced energy technologies is important. Many API member companies and industry groups of which they are members undertake such innovation of technologies in a number of ways. For example, ExxonMobil recently announced the discovery of new material to enhance carbon capture technology. The effort involved scientists from ExxonMobil, University of California, Berkeley, and Lawrence Berkeley National Labs, and identified in laboratory tests this new material that could capture more than 90% of CO2 emitted from industrial sources, such as natural gas-fired power plants. The effort would use low temperature steam and therefore require less energy for the overall carbon capture process. In addition to shared science efforts, companies are investing directly in innovation of others through the creation of venture funds. We recently saw an announcement that Oxy Low Carbon Ventures and Machine Capital Management, a private equity firm, had formed 1.5 to finance and deploy large-scale direct air capture technology in the world's largest direct air capture facility. This is an important step, and as they stated in their announcement, helps them meet their aspiration to deliver this technology on an industrial scale throughout the United States. Other companies such as BP, Chevron, Shell, and Equinor have venture groups with funds dedicated to and investments in the creation, commercialization, and integration of emerging technologies into their businesses. These certainly include ways to improve their core operations, but they are important for identifying new energy technologies in renewable fuels, fuel cells, advanced mobility, power, and storage in other areas. A review of their websites and materials indicates a host of engagements different from the traditional oil and gas joint ventures most associate with the industry. Still, other ways the industry is driving innovation is through programs that leverage the potential breadth of ideas and capacity that are out there to tackle individual issues. Crowdsourcing ideas by companies or industries can provide unique ways to direct efforts and tackle problems. One example, the Canadian Oil Sands Innovation Alliance and Energy, the U.S. integrated power company, have come together to sponsor a $20 million X Prize focused on the development of breakthrough technologies to convert CO2 emissions into usable products. The teams will be judged on the technology that converts the most CO2 into products with the highest value. According to their website, the winners are expected to be announced next year. However, who knows? Who knows what other ideas will be generated and possibly implemented from those participating in the effort. Finally, the industry has also seen, like other industries, a shift to the use of artificial intelligence and big data to bring efficiencies into their operations. I think that it's important to also understand that capacity generates a number of direct and indirect benefits. Certainly, there is the ability to better understand and improve current operations, but there is also created the ability to mine new opportunities and explore practical applications for science and business. Bringing my remarks to a close, I wanted to remind you of our general role as a convener and conduit to the industry. Many of you have benefited from direct engagement with our members and their highly trained staffs. However, API is also open to your questions or thoughts, and we have structures in place to put those in front of a broad group of members. It may be a bit cumbersome at times, but I want to reiterate the motivation I see within the industry on taking on these new energy challenges. I think that concludes my remarks, and I'm certainly happy to take any questions there may be out there.
Thank you so much, Stephen, and I'm sure that you've given us a lot of food for thought. Al, checking in with you as to whether any questions have appeared.
No questions have appeared so far. I'm sure there will be some.
Stephen, I have a question for you, and that is considering, and it's analogous to the prior speaker, the question I put to him as well, and that is, given the circumstances in the world with respect to COVID and associated problems, is it the APIs, the API just keeps moving forward with these core issues that the petroleum industry has to deal with, and remains dedicated to pursuing solutions and resolutions of the problems that you've raised in your discussions?
Yeah, we have focused ourselves in a number of ways as we've sort of reacted to the current situation. But inherent in this in our operations is a focus on safety and driving safety through our operations, focus on standards and making sure that we are able to continue our operations in an appropriate manner. And then as I alluded to, we're taking on this idea, the issues around climate and tackling the issues that I think our companies are working on. And I know that not all of the companies are in the same place, not all the members are in the same place, but again, I reiterate that has been brought to API's management, has been highlighted throughout our various governance committees, this need to sort of tackle these new energy issues. And so we're spending significant time and effort in that endeavor.
Thank you. And I think with respect to the political environment and the continuation of lawsuits that impact in a major way anyone in the oil and gas business, any insights as to how you just power through all that and keep on doing what you do and improving the technology and improving the delivery systems to respond in an orderly fashion and responsive and sensitive fashion in the environment that we operate in, which is a highly litigious world that we exist in. And since you're a lawyer, we can speak lawyer talk and go and bore everybody for a little while talking lawyer talk, but it is a tremendous tidal wave of litigation and issues and the whole package politically. So your comments and all the efforts and dedication that the industry is putting into addressing these issues in a meaningful way, I think is very useful, and I really appreciate your input and your presentation.
Well, thank you.